We hope this message from Word of Life Church and Pastor Brian Zahnd is a blessing to you.
Psalms. The Psalms, the book of the Psalms. Learning to love the Psalms more and more. I wrote an endorsement for a new book on the Psalms. It's coming out here soon. I did that this week. Psalm 25, verse 1. It's a Psalm of David. Just the first line. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. I want to talk to you tonight about a subject you're interested in. I want to talk about you. I want to talk about the real you. I want to talk about who you really are. I want to talk about your true self. I want to talk about your true self. What I want you to know about your true self is this, and this really is the sermon, but I'm going to help you with it. We're going to work on it. But the real you, the true self that you really are is calm, content, wise, and unafraid. That's you. I'm telling you about you, your true self. Calm, content, wise, and unafraid. It's only the false self, the shadow self, the Gollum self, if you prefer Lord of the Rings references. It's only that self that is agitated, grasping, foolish, and afraid. You know what it is to be agitated. You know what it is to be grasping. You know what it is to act foolishly. You know what it is to be afraid. But I'm just telling you, that's not the real you. That's the shadow self, the false self, the Gollum self. Now, you may not really believe it. I can sense maybe some skepticism. You may not believe it when I tell you that you are calm, content, wise, and unafraid. You may not believe that because you have had so very little contact with your true self. It's been buried. It's been, well, here's biblical language. It's been lost. Lost. The self who is calm, content, wise, and unafraid is there, though. Buried deep inside of you. Maybe you had very little contact with that self, but it's there. It's not something that has to be created. It is there. Now, for various reasons, all of which we call sin, the false self, shadow self, Gollum self has held to varying degrees in our individual lives dominion. We're probably more familiar, most of us, with this false self, this imposter, this shadow self, this evil twin, this Gollum, who is constantly agitated, grasping, foolish, and afraid. We're maybe perhaps more familiar with that self, but it's not who you really are. And one of the primary goals of spiritual formation is to become who you really are. I might even say it is the purpose of spiritual formation is for you to become yourself. This redeemed self in Christ, who you really are. And that's why we say that the primary purpose of prayer is not to control God. It's not to change God. It's not to get God to do what you think God ought to do. The primary purpose of prayer is not some form of God management. The primary purpose of prayer is to be properly formed. Is to, in fact, be formed into that true you who is calm, content, wise, and unafraid. Because if you spend all of your time praying out of your agitated self, your grasping self, your foolish self, your afraid self, very little progress will be made. Now, make no mistake about it. This false self, this agitated, grasping, foolish, afraid self, if it has any kind of religious penchant, will pray. It's not that the false self doesn't pray. Oh, the false self will pray all day long. It's agitated, it prays. It's grasping, it prays. It's afraid, it prays. It's, all of those things. But it does you very little good. You just continue to appear as an agitated, grasping, foolish, afraid soul. Everybody say soul. That's the key word, soul. David says to you, "O Lord, I lift up my soul." What do we mean by that? Our soul. I think it's misleading for you to think of the soul as part of you. Some of you have been trained in that misapprehension. Soul is you. The Hebrew word there, and we're in the Psalms, is Hebrew, nephesh. Hebrew is interesting. Not that I know Hebrew, but I'm around it. And it has an economy of vocabulary. It has a much, much smaller vocabulary than English. And so it fosters some creativity in the use of words. Words are pressed into double, triple, quadruple service. The word nephesh is also the word for neck. Soul and neck are the same word, nephesh. But if you think about the neck is this breathing part of you, and you'll see how that factors in. It's also the part that we could say, at least symbolically, connects the cerebral part, the thinking part, the mental part, the abstract part, with the corporeal part, the physical part, the earthy part. So thus it kind of represents the whole. We're told that man came into being this way, that God formed Adam, or Adam. God formed mankind, that's what that word Adam means, from the dust of the Adama, the earth, and breathed into his nostrils the breath, the ruach, the spirit, the wind, because that's all the same word. Ruach means breath, it means spirit, it means wind. And breathed into Adam's nostrils the ruach of life. And Adam became a living soul. That's one translation. But a nephesh became a living soul. So a soul is what you are. And the thing about the human soul is this. This is the big thing. The human soul is capable of bearing an image. The human soul is capable of looking like something. We're also told in the creation account that God said, "Let us make man in our image and according to our likeness." And so the image that the human soul is capable and created to bear is none other than the imago Dei, the image of God. The human being is to show to the rest of creation what God is like. We see the glory of God in creation, in the starry heavens, the vastness of the ocean, the majesty of the mountains, certain aspects of the animal creation. But the fullness of God's glory cannot be captured in those. And so human beings are given this lofty privilege of being these reflectors, these bearers of the image of God in creation. So that human beings properly formed should show us what God is like. Let's talk about nature, human nature, but let's back up. And creatures have a nature. For example, cheetahs are fast. That's just in their nature. I mean, cheetah, fast, they're just created for that. That's their nature. That's what they're supposed to be like. Monkeys are clever, at times conniving. Oxen are strong. That's just their nature. I mean, they're just, to be an ox in your proper nature is to be strong. Lions are fierce. They're not misbehaving when they're fierce. That's just who they are. That's their nature. That's why a cowardly lion is a comedic figure. Because it's not in their nature to be cowardly. It's in their nature to be fierce. Dogs, which humans have actually participated in creating, they come from wolves. But we worked with wolves through over a period of time and turned them into domesticated, loyal animals. So dogs, their nature is to be loyal, to have a master and to be loyal to that master. It's in their nature. We could go on. Deer are skittish. You deer hunters know that this time of year. They're skittish. They're not like lions. They're not fierce. They're skittish. Mountain lions are secretive. Human beings are designed to be calm, content, wise, and unafraid. That is proper human nature. The human being is this being bearing the image of God, because God has breathed upon them, taken the dust of the earth, the breath of his spirit, put them together. And the nature of this being is to be, in fact, calm, content, wise, and unafraid. So what has gone wrong? Because we human beings are far more often, I think, I'm sure you would agree, we're more often agitated, grasping, foolish, and afraid. So what has gone wrong? Well, the answer is quite simply, we have been distorted by sin. The image of God has been distorted, but not erased. We've been marred. There is a depravity. There's a mark of sin upon us, but it's not total. It's not total. It can be restored. It can be recovered, and that's what the gospel is about. By the way, I feel like I need to say this. Most people have been far more distorted by systemic sin than by personal sin. So when I say, well, what's gone wrong with us? We're supposed to be calm, content, wise, and unafraid. But here we go through life, living agitated, grasping, foolish, and afraid. And I say, what's gone wrong? Well, the answer is sin. You go, But we immediately begin to self-incriminate. Now, there's no doubt that our personal sin does mar us. And a lot of people can be really messed up through the choices they make. But as a whole, human beings are actually more distorted by systems of sin that they are born into. Because sin is not just what we as an individual do, or you as an individual do. There are whole systems of sin that we are born into, scripted into, formed by. And most people are far more distorted by systemic sin than personal sin. It's the fallen world. Sometimes the Bible uses the metaphor of Babylon, that shapes us into being often agitated, grasping, foolish, and afraid. So what do we do about it? Well, we do what David did. We lift up our soul to God. Our soul is the creation of God. It's designed to bear the image of God. It's something unique. We're neither angel nor animal. We're something else. We're this wonderful synthesis of heaven and earth. Heaven and earth actually are to come together in humanity. And when you realize that human beings have messed up, you've heard me say this before, what's wrong with the world is it's not the giraffes. They just know how to be giraffes. They're doing it just fine. They're good at it. It's not the whales. The orcas are just good at being orcas. Right? Now we can go all the way through. The problem is human beings. We're not being what we're supposed to be. So, what are we to do? We are to lift up our soul with its distortion, with the marring that has occurred. We're to take our soul and lift it up to its creator. Because remember, the soul is designed to be reflective or to bear an image. And if we can get our soul into the presence of God, we can once again begin to bear that image. We lift up our soul to God that we might recover the proper image, that we might restore our soul. We lift up our soul to God that we might escape our false self and find our true self. And this is one of the primary purposes of prayer. And it is certainly one of the reasons why I strongly advocate praying the Psalms daily. To lift up your soul to God and discover or recover your true Imago Dei self is something that the Psalms are designed to do. The Psalms are a program in the restoration of the human soul. We lift up our soul to God in prayer that we might, as Soren Kierkegaard says, become ourselves. Now with God's help, I shall become myself. Well, one of the ways that God has helped us is to give us these 150 Psalms. Now what I want to do tonight is I want to show you how to pray the Psalms for this purpose. For the purpose of finding and being the self that is calm, content, wise, and unafraid. That person, that soul, that you, that self, that actually exists. It's actually there. It's buried, but it's there. And there is a way of praying the Psalms that can recover, restore that soul, that self. Bring it out. The Psalms are meditations that bend the soul toward calm, content, wisdom, courage. I've chosen just 4 examples for each one of these words. Calm, content, wise, unafraid. I've chosen a psalm. Not a whole psalm, just a line from one of the Psalms. But you could do this. You could come up with dozens for each one of these. I just chose one, each one from a Psalm of David. But you can find many more. So this is what I want you to learn to begin to do. During your time of prayer, during a time of contemplation in prayer especially, you need to take my prayer class. Next one, I haven't set the dates, but it's going to be in January. I'm thinking about doing, instead of doing it over 5 weeks, I'm thinking about doing the next one in January over 5 days. Just, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's a thought, Perry. We could maybe do that. We'll see. But during this time of contemplation, you're there in the presence of God and you're simply contemplating, and you begin to say, and by the way, have you ever noticed how much of the Psalms are addressed to the psalmist? This the psalmist talking to himself. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Why are you so downcast, O my soul? During a time of contemplation and prayer, you begin to say, I am calm. I am content. I am wise. I am unafraid. But it's not merely an assertion, something that you will to be so, and so you assert it. It's not that at all. It's a meditation. And in doing this, you are tapping into or activating this true self, this real you, and you are working to restore the image of God in your soul by lifting up your soul to God. And you do this with the help of meditations and confessions from the Psalms of David. Let's get started. I am calm. Psalm 131. Psalm 131, verse 2. It's a Psalm of David. Psalm 131, verse 2. But I have calmed and quieted my soul. Like a weaned child with its mother, Like a weaned child is my soul within me. As with many of the Psalms, this one is filled with vivid imagery. An image should come to your mind. What you should see is a mother with, let's say, a 2-year-old child that is just about to drop off to sleep. And this child is in its mother's arms, completely content. Not a care in the world. The very picture of contentment. Our Catholic and Orthodox brothers and sisters will probably immediately think of Madonna with child. And if that helps you, you can think of that. But you can just see a child with its mother. A young child, completely content in the embrace of its mother, singing a lullaby perhaps. The child is just about to go to sleep. That is your soul. That is your soul in the loving arms of God. See what David says? I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. Meditate on the beautiful truth that your soul is held in the loving embrace of God. This is one of, there are a few in the Old Testament. There are a few places where God is depicted as a mother, which is fine. God is without gender. I think you understand that. Sometimes he's depicted as a mother. Usually as a father, but sometimes in the Old Testament, we speak of God as a mother. And here, your soul is embraced in the loving arms of God. The self that has that kind of calm is you. It is you, but you have to find it. The agitated, hysterical, crybaby self, how many of you know about that self? That's not you. That's the false self, the shadow self, the golem self. You can dismiss it and let it evaporate. When you're feeling that hysteria, that agitation, everything, just, I'm calm. I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with its mother, like a weaned child with his mother, like a little child with his mother. So is my soul with God. And then you dismiss that agitated self and let it just evaporate. I mean, this is what David is doing. David had all kinds of opportunities to be agitated. But he's meditating and saying, my soul's like this. I am content. Well, it didn't take me 2 seconds to think of a psalm that spoke to that. Psalm 23, verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If you don't want, you're what? Content. The Lord is my shepherd. Well, this again, this is an image. This should have an image. Now, admittedly, in our modern life, separated from an agrarian lifestyle, we don't readily see this image as often, most of us. But still, you know the image. This is a shepherd with a lamb. Again, it's maybe a picture of an embrace, in fact. One is a picture of a child with his mother. Here, think of maybe a small lamb with a shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's in this area of grasping versus contentment that we are most malformed by systemic sin. Our whole economic system, by the way, is predicated upon people always wanting more, always wanting more, always wanting more, always having to have more, gotta have more, gotta have more, gotta have more. And we can't get out of it. The whole system is problematic. Because if everyone today was content, if suddenly this great contentment came over the world, let's say especially the Western world, the modern developed Western world, all of a sudden we thought, my wardrobe's okay. I'd drive that car another 5 years. iPhone 4 is just plenty good. And we just said, well, there's things I need, but other than that, I'm content. I don't have to be subject to fashion changes. If we did that, we would completely crash the economy. The whole thing would just collapse. And it would be a disaster. So you see, we're caught up in a system that demands consumerism. It only works that way. The whole system's messed up. Jesus has solutions, but they're pretty radical. But by the confession, I am content, I'm not just or even primarily referring to financial matters. It does apply to that, but I'm really talking about how to live in the moment without having to try to control it or change it. Just sometimes life just happens. And we don't always have to be aggressively trying to change it or control it. There is a way to say, this is what is happening right now. I will be aware of it. And instead of freaking out, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall be content. And I will trust God. Trust is the alternative to the fight or flight mechanism. When we are in situations that we basically deem unpleasant, and that's when things are out of our control, when it's not the way we have an idea of how life ought to go, don't we? Don't we all have an idea of how life ought to go? And when it doesn't go that way, which is like a lot of the time, it's out of our control, and we're very discontent with that. How come I won't go to where I want to go? Do you know that self? It's not you. It's a false self. It's that grasping. I gotta have it. I gotta have my hands on it. I gotta control things. It's gotta go the way I want it to go. It's not you. I am content. I can just live in the moment. And instead of fighting it or trying to flee from it, I can just trust God. This is the way of, trust. And when we learn to trust, we can be content in all circumstances. The Apostle Paul said that. Apostle Paul told the Philippians, I've learned the secret of being content in all circumstances. And the secret, you want to know the secret? It's not trying to control and change everything. Sometimes you just say, I'm going to trust God. I mean, when Paul is writing this letter, he's in prison. Given his druthers, as we say, he would probably rather not be in prison. But that's the way it is at the moment. Paul says, well, I'm in prison. I'm content. It's out of my hands. I can't control it. I've learned the secret of being content in all circumstances. I trust Jesus. I am wise. Psalm 51:6. Again, these are, I'm just giving you 4 examples. You can find a dozen or more. For some of these, you could probably find 4 dozen. But here's just one example. You can find your own if you like, but I'm helping you out. Psalm 51:6. Again, all these are psalms attributed to David. Behold, you delight in truth in the inward being, and you teach me wisdom in the secret heart. Oh, I love that. You teach me wisdom in the secret heart. There's a secret place in you. And by the way, the secret place is where the real you lives. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. God has a secret place too. It's when the innermost you connects with God. It's hard. It's hard for me to find language to describe it, but there is this inner you, the secret you, the real you, the deep you, that once you get beyond agenda-based praying, which is trying to control everything, and you're always trying, I have my agenda. I'll be happy. I could be happy. I could just be so satisfied and content, He's talking about being content and calm. I'm content and calm if everything would just be the way I want it. No, it's never going to be that way. Once you get beyond agenda-based praying, trying to control the world, I'm such a good prayer, I can make this happen over here. Watch it, I'll make this happen over here. No. When you get beyond that and you learn how to be in the presence of God, then deposits begin to happen into you. God begins to teach you, but don't think of it as like instruction. It isn't like God has given you packets of information. That's what we're talking about. God is depositing something into your secret heart. And it has more to do with peace and patience than with packets of information. Wisdom. Here's the two things I know about wisdom. Wisdom is peaceable and patient. The wise person simply is the person that can maintain peace and be patient. It's not a whole lot more than that. You don't have to know a lot. Information is good. Knowledge is good. It's a good thing, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about wisdom, and wisdom is primarily related to peace, peacefulness, not just the sensation of peace, but a peaceful presence in the world around you. Peaceable and patient. If you will learn to allow peace and patience to govern your decision making, if you will allow peace and patience to govern, you will discover that your past proclivity for foolishness came from the false self. And all you needed to do was to tap into that part of you that has the capacity to be peaceable and patient. Peaceable and patient. As we look at human history, just let the history of human civilization lie before us. Imagine a set of books, perhaps, or maybe you see it as a movie. That might be better. If we're going to try to just, come up with let's say 6,000-7,000 years of really advanced, developed human civilization, and we look at it, it's little more than a series of wars. It's mostly what human history is. It's mostly the battles, the wars, the generals, the clashing kingdoms. As we look at human history, it's mostly about war. I'm going to give you a word of wisdom. War is impatience. War is impatience. And now just bring that home to your own life. Almost always, the warring with other people is a result of impatience. The reason we're impatient is because we don't trust God. We think that the only players are people, and we don't believe that God is actually involved. But when we reach the point where we can trust God, then we can afford to be patient. The person that doesn't have trust in God can't afford to be. I can't afford to be patient. Time's going by here. It's happening. The person who trusts God says, we got eternity, man. My times are in God's hand, and God created time. If he wants, he can create more. I can afford to be patient. And when you start acting out of that, for the sake of peace, I'm going to be patient. For the sake of preserving peace, I'm going to be patient. People will look at you eventually, and you know what they'll start saying about you? That's a wise person. That's a wise person. One more. I am unafraid. Psalm 27. By the way, if you're looking to ground your meditation of I am unafraid somewhere in the Psalms, you could also do it this way. Because you're probably going to land on one. Just open at random somewhere in the Psalms, because that's about what half of the Psalms are about. Is about a meditation to ground the soul in courage. But I chose Psalm 27:3. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. Now, this also has a vivid image. But for David, it was not a metaphor. I mean, when David says, my soul, he's saying, my soul's like a weaned child in the arms of its mother. It's a picture, but it's not reality. It's not literally that way. I mean, David wasn't like a little child. Or when he says, the Lord is my shepherd, David doesn't mean I'm literally a sheep. And God is literally, a shepherd. This is metaphorical language. But when David says, though an army encamp against me, that really happened to him. King Saul sent out the whole army to get this one guy. He actually knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I've had that happen, I've had a whole army come to get me. And yet I learned that even if you have a whole army out to get you, you don't have to be afraid. Though an army encamps against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. I would say the primary characteristic of the false shadow self is that it is afraid. Internal fear. I don't mean the natural external fear of, a mountain lion just jumped out and it releases the adrenaline for fight or flight. I don't mean that. I mean the fear that just stays on that is both generated on the inside and stays on the inside. It's just, the pictures in your mind, everything that could go bad. This is the stuff that wakes you up in the middle of the night and doesn't let you sleep. Everybody know what I'm talking about? That is the false self. That's what that is. That is not you. That is the false self, the golem self, the shadow self trying to take over. The presence of fear may look like what we typically think of as anxiety or worry. Or it may take on other forms like anger and rage and addiction and control and depression and all that kind of stuff. But what's most wrong with us is that we are so afraid. The first time we hear Adam speak, and we are his sons and daughters, the first time we hear him speak, the first thing you ever hear Adam say is, "Oh God, I heard your voice and I was afraid." I was afraid. But as we lift up our soul to God in the Psalms, we learn something wonderful. We don't have to be afraid. That is such good news if you can believe it. You don't have to be afraid. You've spent most of your life being afraid, but you don't have to be. It's not who you are. Because really you're calm, content, wise, and unafraid. Now, I've done this meditation based on the Psalms, and we're gonna just do this here as we get close to closing time here. But you can also do it with Jesus. I am calm because Jesus comes and says, "Peace be with you." I'm content because I've learned the secret of trusting Jesus. I'm wise because I have the mind of Christ. I'm unafraid because Jesus says to me over and over and over, don't be afraid. The most characteristic malformation of the self, the most prominent characteristic of the false self, the shadow self, is that it is afraid. Don't be. Breathe. Listen. Hear. Jesus says, don't be afraid. Hold on to that word and don't be afraid. I want our musicians to come back up here. And over the last few minutes, what I want us to do now is I want us to try to just do some of this. Because I would like for you to touch that, to feel that, to find that real you a little bit. A little bit. This is something you need to work on a lot. But maybe we could just get you started here. And I would love for you to be able to leave here tonight going, you know what, I felt that part of me. I felt that in me. That part that is calm, content, wise, and unafraid. Oh, that's good. All right, I'll just guide you, but we're going to pray. Sermon's over, but we're going to pray. Just remain seated, but just take a moment and breathe. That's what you are. You're a nephesh. You're a breathing thing. Be sure to breathe a little bit. You get agitated. You get afraid. You quit breathing. Breathe. And just say it. Just say it right out loud. You might even be embarrassed to say it at first, but it's all right. Just say, I am calm. I am calm. I have calmed and quieted my soul. I see my soul. I see it. It's like a little child, about 2 years old, I would guess. Safe and secure in the arms of a loving mother. That's my soul. That's who I am. I'm not hysterical. I'm not agitated. I'm calm. That's my soul. I am calm. Jesus speaks to me and says, peace be with you. And just like that ocean, just like that sea was calm when Jesus said peace, Jesus speaks to me and says peace, and all of a sudden my soul is calm. See, there's another picture for you. There's the baby with its mother picture. There's the calm sea picture. Still waters. I am calm. I am content. Pray that, say that. Just say, I am content. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I don't have to try to control everything. Just pray that. I don't have to control everything. If it's out of my control, it's not out of God's control. I can just trust. I am content. I don't have to change this moment. I don't have to pass judgment on this moment. I don't have to evaluate this moment. I don't even have to ask myself, am I happy or am I sad? Do I like this? I don't have to do any of that. I can just be. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be content. I am content. I'm content just to be in this moment. I am wise. Pray that. I am wise. I am wise because God teaches me wisdom in the secret heart. As I present myself before Him, I don't have to figure it out. I just sit in His presence. And I'm peaceable and I'm patient. And when it comes time when I need to make a decision, I'll let peace and patience rule, and I will be wise. I will have the mind of Christ. I'll let the peace of Christ rule in my heart. I will be patient. I'm wise enough to be peaceable and patient. I'm wise. And I am unafraid. Say that, pray that. I am unafraid. Though an army encamp against me, I shall not fear. My heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, I'll still be confident because I am unafraid. That's who I am. I'm a human being created in the image of God. Jesus speaks to me and says, don't be afraid. And I say, okay, I won't be. Jesus speaks to me and says, don't be afraid. Jesus never says, be afraid. He never says that. He says, don't be afraid. Say it with me. I am calm. I am content. I am wise. I am unafraid. This is who I am. I lift up my soul to God. Now stand up with me. Lift up your hands. You're lifting up your soul to God. I lift up my soul, O Lord, to you, that it might bear your image. And as I bear your image, I will be calm, content, wise, and unafraid. Amen.